Hi, thank you for stopping by. This is my ranting and raving time on my timeline, answering a question that Mark Zuckerberg would always ask. What's going on in your mind? Can you believe what's going on in my mind right now is FOOL. Fool. That's what's going on in my mind. I've been thinking about it for quite some time, for a very long time instead. And I've been looking around me. And the reason why I have been thinking about it like this is as when you look around in the world that we're living in the province, in the country that we're living in South Africa in particular, and in the world that we're looking at, in the global world, it's amazing just how fools appear to be wise and how the wise seem to be fools, depending on where you're standing and depending where you're looking from. And I've been thinking, who is fooling who in the zoo? I have reason to believe that no one is born a fool and no one is a fool until they present themselves as such in their speech and in their actions, in their decision making. You know, and the unfortunate thing about this, and this is why I thought about this, is that fools can be very costly, and they can cost not only themselves, but a lot of people. So when you have foolish people in very important positions of power and positions of responsibility, it goes on without say that that is going to be foolery on flick. It's going to be foolery on steroids. And that is why I then was thinking about it to say that fools do matter after all. And if we don't think about that, unfortunately, it makes us fools. It really makes us fools in thinking that what actually matters does not matter until we see the results of what we thought did not matter. And one of the ways in which one can be saved from self-destruction is for them to be aware of how destructive they can be to themselves. And one of the ways in which you can, cushion yourself or even save yourself from the disaster that will be brought about by the company of fools is to know that you do have a company of fools. And that is not an insult, by the way. I have heard and I've seen people getting offended and making this out to be an insult. And I know of the people that actually use the word as an insult. But what it is, it really is a definition of your state of mind, your actions, and your decisions. That's all it is. It just defines my perception. If I call you a fool, it defines my perception of you. If you call me a fool, it only defines what you see me doing. I'm not a fool by how I look or how I am. It doesn't make me a fool. It is only when I act and when I speak that I actually show my foolishness. Hence, a wise man said, it's better sometimes to keep quiet. And in fact, you'd find that a lot of wise people talk little. Fools talk a lot. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that I'm talking a lot. Well, that's cool. It's fine. I'm the one who said it. I got myself into that trap. But here is where I want to go. Where I want to go is in our country, for instance. Okay, let me not talk about our country. Let me talk about in my own personal life, in my immediate surroundings. What if I look at my life? What better defines me between the word wise and fool? I know this is a very hard one. You hardly ever find people talking about this. At least not in this particular way, because when you do this, then you open yourself up to people attacking you, people immediately saying that, but whatever, reflecting it back on you. But that's okay. That's a risk of doing what I'm doing right now. If I'm going to make anything in my life that matters to be progressive and to grow beautifully, I need to ask myself that tough question. Are my decisions, actions, speech foolish or wise? That's the first thing. But the second thing is that you also have to realize that sometimes as humanity, as human beings, we have a tendency to believe everything we say, like my way or the highway. If I said it, it's cast on stone. And a lot of the times, that's where the problem begins. The problem begins when we believe voices in our heads without even wanting to know what informs even those voices in our heads, or what informs our opinions. And what I've realized is that all of us, at the very foundation, at the very elementary level of our lives, we become the expression of our parents, our families, our communities, society, the country we live in. We become that expression. So a lot of our decisions and whatever things that make us tickle are informed by those. And depending on the effect and the extent to which those begin to inform your movements more than begin to inform how much of an independent thinker, a logical thinker that you are. It will depend on those particular things. But as time goes on, then, because remember, at the elementary stage, we don't know anything. We're trying to make sense of this thing called life, and we're piecing together all this information, all of these noises that are going on around us. There are rules, there are principles here, there are blockages here, there are no-go areas, and there are cul-de-sacs here, there's speed regulations here, and all of that. We're trying to take all of this. As soon as we come of a particular age, and it differs from one person to the other, we start having the responsibility. It's like a natural inclination to have a responsibility to take all of these things, this clutter that you have been acquiring as you were growing, as you were coming up, and the responsibility now lies on you, and nobody's going to tell you that, by the way, or there's not going to be an alarm that goes, break time, now it's going to be time for the transition. We're going to go to where now you are going to have to take all of this clutter that you have acquired and begin to put them in order, and begin to take stuff that do not seem to be helping you out, and filling the void wherever you take out what is it that you put in, and that becomes your responsibility. And that is where you cannot say a child who's still in that age where you cannot hold them accountable to their deeds as an adult, if you know what I mean, the accountability age. But when you get to that particular level where you are at the accountability stage, this is where now we can begin to talk about the wise and the fool. Because it is a stage where you cannot blame the systems anymore. And fools have a tendency of not wanting now to take the responsibility of taking the clutter and decluttering it and putting everything in its order. And foolishness basically is laziness to think. Foolishness is exactly that, laziness to think. Laziness to go all the way. Laziness to take time to build things of quality. That is foolishness. Because what foolishness is, it's premised on the things that don't last. And wisdom is actually premised on things that last. And if you look at just the simple definition of what a fool is someone who's unwise. in their action, unwise in their speech, reckless in their speech. The difference between a fool and a wise person is, in simple terms that I can think of right now, is that a fool and a wise person at the same time can do a particular thing, but one will choose not to do it and the other will choose to do it. Sometimes there are things that you can do, but the responsibility is still on you whether you do them or not. And that's what's going to distinguish between a fool and a wise person. And that's where I actually realized, this foolery and wisewood, it's actually very critical. It's fundamental. And if then it's fundamental, are we born fools and are we born wise? No. If you go back to what I've just said, that we all come as a blank slate, but there comes a time where we have to be responsible for the clutter. It doesn't matter whether it's good stuff that was crammed inside the can of all gold, all 36 tomatoes of junk in your clutter. Whether it's good stuff, it doesn't matter, because both bad and good have the potential to make you the best person that you can, have the potential to make you wise. And that begins to mean, and this is not an educated thing, this is my ranting, this is my observation, this is what I concluded when I look around, that we become an expression of what we do, what we decide. And how we decide, how we do, and we come to a conclusion of deciding and doing what we do will be informed by how much we are willing to work on the clutter that is there. If there is good stuff that have been deposited, let me start with the bad stuff. If there's bad stuff that had been deposited at the time when you had not reached the age of accountability for your actions and for your decisions, all of those, the negative ones that have been imposed there, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, the responsibility still accrues to you. As soon as you reach a particular level of accountability, you are responsible. What do you do with the negative clutter that has been put inside of your piggyback? What do you do with that? Take them out? Do you build on them? The responsibility lies on you. Will you then say that I cannot be anything better because there's clutter? No, you cannot, because that age of responsibility requires from you to do something about that clutter. And here's the thing, that negative clutter. The thing is, if you can see the negative clutter as the reason why you know that negativity destroys. If you can see that, you have just become you've just started the steps in the right direction to being a wise person. Because the fact of the matter is, the negatives do not have to end up with you being negative. They don't. At the same time, the positives, and normally I've said this, a blessing to many people looks like a curse. A blessing that we are all running after, to a lot of people, looks like a curse. A blessing to a lot of people brings things that when we look from the outside, in fact, the very person that has that particular blessing, in inverted commas, actually looks at the things that are brought by this blessing as a curse. Because a good thing in the hands of a fool changes. A bad thing in the hands of a wise person changes as well. The difference is not in the state. The difference is whose control does it fall under? Who does it come in contact with? That's where the difference is. A good company, when it meets a fool, it will go down and the good will be nothing but a memory. That's just what it is. You can have a lot of money, and that money can actually be your fast forward to destruction. I'm definitely sure that someone out there knows someone who became a torpedo on its way to self-destruction from the minute they got some kind of a breakthrough. Some people were not drinking alcohol, and only when they got a job they've been praying for, they are drinking their lives to a stupor. And you'd hear even sometimes their family saying that, I wish you can lose this job because at this rate you are going to be kaput. A job is not a curse. It's a blessing. But when a fool gets a job, and in fact, you will know, you will identify with this, that you can go to an establishment where when you look at it, the person that is actually working here, it doesn't look like they want to work here. That means the wrong person got a job. Right people don't have the job. So this person has a blessing called a job. But how they deal with it in such a way that you can actually say, now that is a fool. That's an unappreciative person. And that's the tendency of the fools. Fools are unappreciative. They want to put their hands in everything very quickly. They want to be found anywhere, but there's nothing that moves. That's fools for you. And you can see in the world, and I'm closing down now. You can see in the world today that you have, I can't even put it. If you look at the circus that the world has become today, if you want to come back home, South Africa, you can see just how much of a circus our country has become. Because you see, one of the things is, if you give power to a fool, power is not going to make a fool a better person. If you give education to a fool, and I've actually realized this, you have educated people. You have people with masters and doctorates, and they're not adding value. If anything, they're taking away from what they're supposed to be adding on. You know what I'm talking about. You know the people that I'm talking about. You have those that have their parents, giving up everything for them to go to school and become lawyers so that they can contribute to the justice system. And guess what? They actually become the ones that are ripping off the poor, the vulnerable. What's even worse, those that actually have suffered injuries, all types of injuries. And there are people in the legal machinery, in the justice machinery, that are actually profiting, shamelessly out of that. Because education does not make a person wise. There are many educated fools. Money does not make a person wise. And I know you can think about a couple right now as I'm talking to you. There are many things that are good that become bad because they fall in the wrong hands. And I know that there are good men who have fallen in the hands of foolish women. And there are very good women that have fallen in the hands of very foolish men. Good woman in the hands of a foolish man, disaster. Good man in the hands of a foolish woman, disaster. Now, a fool is not something that you are born to be. A fool is what you decide to be. So next time when you see a fool out there, you must know they have decided to be fools, either actively or just by doing nothing.